Welcome back, everybody. I'm Glenn McGowan, and this is LCOBMW. Today I'm going to be talking about some oil leaks that I'm having on the 69 Vette. I know it's probably like a common thing. Everybody's got oil leaks, your valve covers, your rear main seals, oil pan. So I'm going to break this into like two categories. So the one is going to be like basic oil leaks, and the other one is going to be like catastrophic oil leaks. So for me, this is my second catastrophic oil leak that I almost had on this car. Almost. The first time was an oil pan that I put a hole in and was driving it back, and luckily it wasn't far, so I got back, saw the oil pouring out of the car, and just repaired the pan, which is kind of no big deal. But that's one of those things, if you're not watching the oil pressure gauge, you could just wipe your engine out like that, especially if you're driving back far. So yesterday I was up at my kid's school. I took the car out. I haven't driven it in a while since I put the radio in it, so it's probably been like a month or so. So drove up to my kid's school for the little Halloween parade or whatever. I get back, I'm bringing it back into the shop, and I noticed some drips of oil behind it. I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. And I look underneath the transmission, the back of the transmission. Now this is a 4-speed car, not an automatic transmission car, so there is oil just pouring out of that. And I'm like, that's really weird. So I open up the hood, look behind the valve covers. I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's a rear main seal. I'm like, that's too far back. Like, it's back the tail shaft of the transmission. So I'm thinking to myself, what could this be? So I let the car sit. I kind of sat on it for a little bit, and I was like, oh, I just put the radio in it and I had the gauge thing out, and the oil pressure line to the gauge must have broke. So I confirmed it a little bit ago. I peeked on the passenger side and I saw oil inside the car. So I'm assuming that the oil gauge line broke and was pouring down the transmission shifter hole there, down the trans, and that's pretty much where it's coming from, which is pretty bizarre, because if you think about it, any oil leak, even if it's a really bad one, it's going to be pouring out the back of the engine, it's going to be smoking, you're going to know right out of the gate. This, I had no idea. I wouldn't even know. Now obviously, you know, the engine's like low on oil, and I wasn't really looking at the gauge. I was just trying to get home. I wasn't paying attention. But it could have been so much worse. I could have been driving it and it could have just pissed all the oil out. So thankfully, you know, I kind of caught it. So I'm going to just take this off today and take a look at, you know, where it actually broke, try to repair that. But, you know, pretty much any basic oil leak, when you're looking at it, obviously it's on the ground. So you're going to want to trace it to its highest point. Now, obviously gasket failure is the #1 cause. So that's kind of what you usually go after if you see it. But in this case, it's an oddball oil leak. And with older cars, when they sit, all the plastic and hoses and stuff like that are really, really brittle. And I didn't jack the car up, which I wanted to, and then start tracing it up. I just figured, you know what, if it's coming from there, it's gotta be coming from there. Where else would it come from? It's not like a new fancy pants fangled car and it's got like an oil line feeding some like GPS module. Like, it's just a basic big block Chevy. There's nothing really complicated about the oiling system in the car. Luckily it's something simple, so we'll be able to repair it without having to jack the car up and get underneath of it. But that's really where you want to start. You want to trace it where it's coming from the bottom all the way up to see where, you know, it's coming out. Dipstick tube, something like that. So let's get into this thing real quick, get that gauge cluster out and find our leak. So we just dropped our new clothing line. Everything's available at LCOBMW.com. Some of our new designs are Save the Sticks. We also have, it's not just the car, it's Corvette. And then on the back, we have our new logo. And on the right side sleeve of the hooded sweatshirts, we have our signature spark plug. We do have all these designs available in t-shirts and sweatshirts. We also have E36, E46, and also our basic, which just has logo on the chest, and then our spark plug on the sleeve. So check out all our products and our merch at LCOBMW.com. So while I have the hood up, I'm just going to go over a couple points. So if you do have an oil leak, you'll kind of know what to look for. Just the basic stuff. So a lot of this is common. So if you have an old car, you've done this a million times. But if you're new to the old car game, or small block, big block, or any engine, like, this is the basic oil leak stuff. So let's look at this. So this is your valve cover, obviously, and then your gasket around here. They will always fail at some point, and usually sometimes leak down the back. They'll leak on the headers, and that'll actually give you your smoke pouring off. And then, you know, it could also leak at the back of the intake typically. Even if you don't have like a gasket on your distributor here, it could leak oil from there. And then around this side, sometimes if your dipstick's not secure or something, you can get some leaking out of there, but it's mainly valve covers and oil pans through time, rear main seals, but you're gonna see that oil on the back of the engine. So any of these oil leaks here will go straight down. They will run down the back and it'll show you a clear trail of where the oil is actually coming from. In my case, it's a bizarre circumstance. It's not a common circumstance. So oil that's back there is bizarre because oil, all of it is going to go straight down to the ground. Even if it's in the back of the engine, in the clutch, it's going to be pouring out of the bottom of the bell housing and it won't make its way back further. Also too, you're going to have timing chain covers leaking and stuff like that. Besides that, that's the basic stuff that you're going to have with oil leaks on an engine. So I'll try to show you underneath here real quick. The lighting's poor, but you can see I have a piece of cardboard on there, but that's where the oil is. And then I noticed this morning, I just peeked my head in and you can see right here, this is all wet with oil here. And I did notice the radio when I put it in yesterday on the way back, it started sounding funny. I'm like, oh, well, it's probably ruined now. There's oil, it's oil soaked, but it all, you know, there's just little clues that lead up to it. So there's the oil pressure gauge right there. So I'm gonna get these screws out, pull it out, take a look. Okay, let's get this thing out and take a look behind here and smell the oil. So I'm just hoping the oil didn't ruin the radio. Kind of have a feeling it did, but I was wondering why it was breaking up so bad when I was pulling up. Like it sounded all weird and distorted. But I guess that's what happens when you get like soaked in oil and you're not supposed to. It looks like I gotta take off this shifter plate and center console here. I just touched the carpet down on the floor and it's completely soaked with oil. So I think there's gonna be a lot of cleanup I'm gonna have to address here. But I guess it could be worse. Oh man, it's soaked. Try to get a shot down in here. Look at all that. See all that's just like puddled up in there. Gross. Okay, I'm pulling this out here. This should give us the room to find out where our leak is. It's out of the way. It's wet back here. Oh, there she is. The broken line right there. And it's probably about 5 quarts on the floor in here. It looks about right. I mean, it's completely freaking soaked. Everything is. And it snapped right off the back there. You can see this is the gauge. And it went in right there, and then it just snapped right off. For some reason I thought it was plastic, but it's like a copper line, which I guess makes more sense. And now I'm actually just gonna cut the damaged end of this line off here, and a nice clean cut, and I'm just gonna redo the fitting, and that should do the trick. Okay, so that's cut, so I'm just gonna put the other pieces of the compression fitting on here and then I'll screw it in the back of this. So I got my fitting all ready to go in here and just want to show you what that looks like there. So now I'm just gonna kind of massage this over and line it up with the back of the gauge and then screw it in. You want to make sure that the line is like a straight shot in the back of the gauge before you start tightening it down. And obviously, once you get this tight, or I get it tight, I'm going to put oil in this thing, start it up, make sure it's not leaking before I put it back together. So I don't know what the cleanup procedure is going to be for the inside of that thing. I guess maybe like fill the floor with kitty litter or something. I mean, the passenger side carpet is just so soaked that I don't know, I guess maybe you have to replace it or something, because I don't know if that wheel's ever gonna get out of there. But I'll try to clean it up best I can, like the tunnel and stuff like that. Gotta go underneath this thing, still brake clean everything, get all the oil off of that. But at least we fixed the leak, I hope. Okay, here goes nothing. So if oil sprays up at the camera, it means I didn't fix it. So keep your fingers crossed. Okay, so I got oil pressure. I'm just gonna start it again, let it run for a little bit, and then just double check the back of that, make sure it's not seeping at all, but it looks like it's pretty good so far. So I'll also make sure that when I'm putting this back, I'll bend the copper pipe gently and make sure it's not hitting on anything so I don't just ram it back there and snap it again. So far so good. So before I actually put everything back, I want to double check my radio. Like I said, there was some issues with it. I wasn't sure if it was from the oil or not or whatever, but I just want to double check that first. I had it sitting on top of like a paper towel to see if any oil was like pouring out of it, but it seemed fine. So I got it all plugged back in, and I'm just going to double check it real quick. Turn it on, auxiliary, put my phone hooked up to it. Okay, cool. Okay, so definitely not as bad as I thought. I thought for sure that something was up with the radio, but it seems like it's working fine now. So I will now start putting everything back together. I'm gonna get some brake clean. I'm gonna start spraying down a lot of this hard parts here of the tunnel and just kind of clean it up a little bit because it's everywhere. So I was able to get the car back started. I did let it run for a while, and I checked the back of the gauge and there's no leaking. I got most of the center console cleaned up. I'm letting it air out right now because it just reeks of brake cleaner. Not sure what I'm gonna do about the carpet yet. I'm gonna think on that for a little bit. Gotta clean underneath the car. Not gonna bore you with that. But comment down below if you ever had a really weird oil leak like this before, happened to you without really knowing. Other than that, it could have been a lot worse. My radio's good. I could fix it pretty much from inside of the car. I didn't have to take anything apart too bad, so it wasn't that big of an ordeal for once. But you know, these old cars are finicky, so you always kind of gotta stay up on top of them. So if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. Thanks for watching.